Hey up lads and lasses, Damphyre here, back again with some more Infinite Lagrange. Today, looking at the Corvette tier list, shouldn't be too bad this one, not too much change generally speaking. Like flat out everything's lost damage, but for the most part hasn't really affected everything too much there. So we'll start off from the bottom as we always do and work our way up and see if anything moves around. I have tested pretty much all of these last servers, so I have a good idea of where they sort of sit. I even managed to pick up CV-M11 AA for myself, so I actually got to test that properly myself, which was fun because it's actually pretty decent. I mean, I saw the battle reports and stuff, and that's why it's an 80 already, but you know, difference between relying on somebody else's battle report and using your own, yeah, can be a little bit different. So CV-11003, it got a slight damage increase. I mean, overall everything has lost 30% damage here, so bear that in mind. When I say like a damage increase, I mean that's what they gave it in replace for 30% damage reduction. And in the case of this, one, the alpha on the guns aren't high enough for the damage increase to really affect it too much, and B, the damage decrease didn't technically affect it too much for the exact same reason. So it really didn't actually have anything sort of happen to it. It's still terrible. So yeah, it's staying in D. There is nothing good to really say about this shit bar. I mean, if you have literally no other Corvettes and you've run out of ships to put in your fleet and you've put CAS with aircraft capability to carry Corvettes in, maybe use the CV-1100. To be honest, you could leave the CAS empty and it would probably perform about the same as when the CAS were on it. So sorry, when the CV-11s were on it. So yeah, there you go. Staying where it is. In C tier, the CV-M11 got a hit rate against frigates and destroyers, and its missile system or cannon system, which is counter AA, that got buffed. Unfortunately, because the cannon's being counter AA, the strat really doesn't do anything for it. And yeah, the hit rate versus frigs and desi is nice, but it's not amazing. It's not really done anything to it. Again, the damage is quite low on this thing as well, so losing 30% damage, it's lost like 3 damage or something silly. It's really nothing to really talk about. So the damage decreases for the most part haven't affected most of the ships like that, because the damage is quite low on them anyway. They tend to rely on things like rapid firing and that kind of thing to actually deal their damage output. So a damage reduction hasn't changed the Corvettes. Silent Assassin, strat buff, it didn't do anything for it. However, I did play around with it myself a little bit more, and as a screen, it's okay. So I actually am going to move it up into the B tier. So I was running this just screening for my other Corvettes and that kind of thing, and yeah, it does alright. It almost always gets out first, so it almost always gets targeted first, and that's because on its propulsion system it's got target time reduction and that kind of stuff going on. On top of that, you can run double evasion, and the HP's okay. It's certainly not up there with the Void Elfin, so be aware of that. But if you do need a Corvette and you need a screen, although the meta's changing a little bit now to be a little bit less air focused, screens might not be quite as important. Check out the Silent Assassin. It does the job. So it's going into B tier, which is kind of like right in the middle, right? So yeah, it's completely viable. Moving on up into B tier then, we have the CV-M11. This is the missile variant. It got a crit damage increase, and again, same as the M11 cannon, it's got a minor increase for its AA, but that AA is counter-attack only, so it only gets affected when it's been shot at by other aircraft. So it's not particularly great in that. The crit damage increase, I actually noticed a slight damage increase when running the crit build on it after losing 30% damage. So it's, you know, it gained a tiny bit, in my opinion. Still not enough to put it into A tier, though. But, you know, it's not bad. It's a good ship. It's a good filler ship, for certain. So, yeah, it's staying in B. Neb Chaser, ballistic. It got hit rate on its assault missiles. It got hit rate on its cannons as well. You actually see a very, very minor damage increase yet again, mostly due to the fact that 30% of, I think it only has like 110 on its alpha or something, so you're only losing 3 damage. So the hit rate increases actually helped it out and dished out more damage more consistently, so it did okay though. Again, I wouldn't put it in A tier, so it's going to stay again in B tier. I think is it slightly better than the M11 now? The problem with it is the Neb Chasers, both variants, seem to get primaried very, very hard, very, very fast. So with the CV-M11, might screen a little bit, and also, you know, dish out okay damage. The Neb Chaser just dies, and it doesn't get a chance to actually ramp up its damage. Similar issue with the Chaser Pulse here, but we'll move on to that now because we're moving into A tier. So we'll go with the CV-M11 AA. It got a crit damage increase, which is actually really nice. Again, it's got some useless stuff on its cannon system, so you can just ignore that because it's counter-attack. So the crit damage increase actually worked out quite nicely. So I compared this to old battle reports that I had previously when I previously did this tier list, and compared it to the new battle reports when I got it myself, which is after the changes came into play. And I noticed a very slight damage increase, albeit you could put that down to the fleet I was putting in, because my fleet wasn't identical to the old battle reports. I couldn't do that because I didn't have the tech points and the right ships. But yeah. It's staying in A tier. It is not quite as good as a T800 for attacking air, but it's not too far off, and the fact you can build 15 of them means you can usually have, you know, some spare to put in, you know, secondary fleets, which is actually quite nice, and you get utility from the fact that you can build so many of them. Neb Chaser Pulse. If anything, this actually lost damage output. Only just, though. I saw very negligible amounts of like damage decrease and consistency of its damage. It got a strat buff. I tried the strat out. I didn't see any changes whenever I was using it, and I genuinely didn't build it with a strat in the first place because it wasn't particularly great. And with the strat and the strat changes, it just performed pretty much the same as it did before. So, I mean, something you can give them, I guess, is the changes to all the Corvettes. The fighters seem about the same as well. It was a balanced shame because nothing really bloody happened to him. The Void Elfin, it got a slight damage buff after taking a damage loss, so it gained, if anything, it lost 5% damage at best. So unfortunately, again, not particularly great, and is still the premier screen in my opinion. It does screen out better than the Silent Assassin. It's got a slight better dodge rate and doesn't die quite as rapidly as the Silent Assassins do. But yeah, it's okay. Red Beast got a crit damage buff. Unfortunately, while playing around with a bit more, the Red Beast just dies so fast. I have no idea why, but there is a hatred on the AA guns for Red Beasts, and they just absolutely melt. It's kind of nuts. Which kind of leaves it in a really weird position, because I don't think it should be in A anymore, because if it can't get the damage output, it's better than the missile, CV-M11 missiles, but only barely. And against the current fleet meta, where we are seeing like the heavier fleets, the Red Beast does have, you know, a bit of help there, because, you know, people are running cassocks and that kind of thing, and Red Beast hit them quite well. So, but unfortunately, like I said, they do seem to just die pretty frequently, which is a little bit unfortunate for it. Moving on up to S tier, the T800, the Strat got slightly buffed. It's in a similar position as the Neb Chaser Pulse. The Strat's not amazing on it. Is it worth running now? You could potentially drop something to run it. It didn't really do anything. Again, it's another one of these ships that has a more rapid fire gun as well, so the weapon... The 30% damage loss that we got from weapon tech changes hasn't really affected it. It's still performing, and it's still the best in slot for AA within the Corvettes. Cellular Defender, it received the damage increase on one of its modules, which means it runs at around about a 25% damage increase. This does get hit a bit harder from a 30% knock, but the damage increase on this makes sense because the damage increase that it got on the module brings it back up to around 25%. So it's only losing 5% damage output, and in the case of a cellular defender with a high alpha torpedo strike, it actually wins, which is actually quite nice. So yeah, definitely check out the Cell Defender. It's still just as good as it was before. And last but not least, the S-Levy 9. So the Levy 9, this gets hit hard by a 30% damage decrease. It's got a huge alpha strike potential. If I have a quick look now, I'll give you the numbers. So at base, it's 1,180 damage per hit. It's lost 300-ish odd damage with, you know, basic math calculation there. It hurts. That hurts it a lot. So you're in a position now where the entire ship is revolving around going out and hitting for, it was before like 1,500, 1,600 damage per hit, and now it's only hitting for 1,100. It's actually gets to about 1,200, 12 or 1,300, I think it is. So losing 300 damage off it really, really sucks. What I was really hoping for was a change here, where they maybe give it the damage the same as the Cellular Defender got, or they would change its strat a little bit. Maybe it gets 3 rounds instead of 2 rounds of armor pen. And that would have been really good, and it would have stayed up an S tier. Unfortunately, they gave it a hit rate buff, and because this thing consistently goes onto ships where it's meant to be targeting things like battle crews and stuff like that, the hit rate buff is negligible because, generally speaking, it hits most of the time. So consistency-wise, hasn't helped it with the hit rate buff. All it's lost is 30% of its damage, and the S-Levy is getting moved down into the A tier. It's better than the Neb Chaser Pulse. The Void Elfin is a screen, so that's just your best screen option. And the M11 AA is your second best in slot AA. So I'm going to put the AA ahead of the Levy 9. So there we have it. Not too many changes there at all. Silent Assassin moved up, S-Levy has gone down, and Red Beast has gone down. For the most part, though, they were quite balanced changes due to the fact that most of the weapon systems don't have high enough alpha for 30% damage to really affect them too much, with the exception of the Levy 9, which got hit hard by a 30% damage reduction, and all it got in return was a hit rate buff that it didn't necessarily need. So there you go. That is the Corvettes. If you think I've missed something here, write a comment down below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.